So these actually silver dragons. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint him in a metallic color and then shade him. Okay, so the most for a tabletop standard, the main process or formula that you want to do, you want to clean up, prime, which I did backwards in this case because this miniature came primed, but no big deal. The little bit that I scraped off, the paint will still hold there. It's not going to come off in those little spots. Clean them up, prime them, put your base colors on, which your base color would be just solid colors. Then you shade, and then you highlight. And then I usually put some sort of lacquer on it to keep it nice. Depending on what you want, you can do flat, satin, shiny. He's a dragon, I don't know, probably satin, shiny would be good on him. Most of my army guys, war guys, my Warhammer guys, they end up flat because, you know, they're military. So, alright, let's get to base coating him. So I'm going to start with his underside. And I'm going to start, I'm going to do green on the bottom, silver on the top, probably do some blue and purple colors. I think that would look pretty cool. So the first thing you got to do, shake your paints. Overlooked. You got to shake your paint. Okay. So the Citadel paints, they come in these pots. They're okay. I prefer the dropper bottles. I do a lot of airbrushing. So with the dropper bottles, I can count drops, and you know, I can do like 3 drops of thinner, 3 drops of color, maybe a drop of flow improver. I've got my ratio. I'm gonna mix it up in the pot and paint. With this, it's a lot harder to do because you're just scooping paint out. How much do I have? I have no idea. So, all right, this is an old ratty brush. You can see it's all splayed. It's junk. It's perfect for this task. Okay, and here I have my wet palette. And another video, this is a store-bought one I got off of Amazon. You don't have to do one of these. You can make one yourself. We might do a video in the future on how to make one of these. Very simple, a shallow tray, some folded up paper towels, some water, and old-fashioned parchment paper. Not wax paper, parchment paper. Okay, so what this is gonna do, this is gonna keep my paints wet as I work with them, so they will not dry out. So what I'm gonna do here, scoop a little bit out, put it on my paint tray, put it on my palette right here, and there we go. Did I bring any palette paper? I didn't. No big deal. So, and then what I do, I have my bottle of what I call craft ketchup.
Condiments.
Most of the time, actually, pure water is just as good in this circumstance. I do this because it kind of helps me control the paint a little bit more. This is basically a flat medium in some water. You can get the flat medium in the yard store, online. It's basically paint without color. It is all it is. And I just kind of do about half and half, put a little drop there, mix it up, and you always thin your paints. Now, some people are always say, you know, I have trouble with the wet palette, have a hard time keeping the consistency. Here's a little trick I learned after many times of messing this up, is if at this point when you're mixing your paint, push down on it. That will cause the water to come up. Then you know how much water you're gonna get from the palette. Because what I put in there is thinning it. Water coming up from through the paper is gonna thin it some. So there, that way I don't have any surprises later and I come back and this is just soup. So let me just see if I can do a quick demonstration. Yeah, so when I started painting, you saw all these tutorials that said paint this color here, paint this color here, do this. But I never got really good results. There was the basics that I think a lot of people who've been painting for a long time take for granted. So, things like, how do you load your brush? How do you thin your paints? You know, all these things matter, like in the very beginning, to get a good result in the end. So let's go back to our unthinned paint. Alright, I'm just going to use this paint tray here. So if you just paint on here, see how it globs, and you see every single brush stroke. Can you see that? Good. Good. And here, so that is undesirable. That is gonna not look so good, and it's a little hard to control. It's thick and goopy. So now that I have thinned my paints down, put some on the brush, and you can see there, it's not gloopy on the ends, and you don't see as many brush strokes. Now it is transparent. Acrylic paint, by nature, is transparent.
Hold it up to the camera.
There you go. By nature, this is transparent. You are going to have to do multiple coats. Your first coat is going to look terrible. Every time. It just is. That's one thing I had to learn the hard way. It's like I'm painting it on like, oh, this is horrible. No. It's going to take multiple coats. So that's about the consistency you want. Depending on what you're doing, you can water it down further. Okay, now here is how I load my brush. Let me start out with a clean brush. Another thing is, don't jam your brush down on, in the bottom of the cup. Don't, jam it on the paper towel. Just, I don't know if you see what I'm doing here. Just nice and easy, pull that water off, okay? And never start with a dry brush. You can see here, this is just a number 2. It's not a very small brush. You can do quite a bit of detail with just these number 2s. Actually, I'm going to grab this one. Just because this one has, and see how it's got a nice pointy tip. See that? And there. Nice pointy tip. And you just kind of take care of it. Okay, loading your brush. I know, if you guys painted a lot of miniatures, this is probably really boring to you. But for a lot of people, this might be very helpful. You kind of go into the paint, put it on, pull it back out. And you just turn your brush, make that point again. And then usually, you'll see a lot of people, they'll use the back of their thumb. I usually just do something like this. Just make sure you get the excess off. Okay, and if you look at my brush tip, there's no paint just glooping off of there. It's just on there nice and neat. I don't have it down here in the ferrule, which will later cause your bristles to splay out, look more like this. No nice clean tip. But keep your old brushes. There's use for those.